I'll just start with talking about RubyMotion. My estimate is that I sort of practiced, semi practiced this talk, so it took me like 30 minutes. So I'm not sure if I will include everything. But anyway, if you have questions, just ask me. Because I originally planned to make a sample app, but I guess it would really take time. And so my name is Marc Ignacio. This is my Twitter. Well, it's not yet obvious. I also work for Illogical. In some prerequisites, some assumptions that I think most of us know. Anyway, so I think you should be able to read a little bit of Ruby, know a little bit of MVC, and it would be helpful if you know Objective-C. But it's not really, it's optional. So what is RubyMotion? If you're a Ruby developer and you want to leverage your Ruby skills into creating iOS apps, then you've got RubyMotion, which is a Ruby toolchain for the iOS. So it's created by Laurent Samsonetti. He formerly worked for Apple for 7 years, and during that time he was able to create an open source project called the Mac Ruby, which is the same thing. It's like RubyMotion, but it's for creating Mac OS X apps. And so he ported Mac Ruby into RubyMotion. Like Mac Ruby, RubyMotion is also Ruby 1.9 compliant. So most of the stuff that you can do in normal Ruby, you can do in RubyMotion. And what the difference between RubyMotion against other alternatives for creating iOS apps is that, for example, Titanium or Corona SDK or whatever, they put something on top of the iOS SDK stack. And the way RubyMotion is different is that it works sort of side by side with Objective-C. It has its own static compiler that compiles straight into machine code. So basically, they look different. Ruby and Objective-C, but when you're actually doing the code, they're just when you compile the code, it's just the same. So a few observations from experimenting with RubyMotion. First is that RubyMotion objects are Objective-C objects, and an example of that is, for example, you have a string, you get its ancestors here. In normal Ruby, you would get something like this. You have string, comparable, and basically every object in Ruby is its ancestor is an object. In RubyMotion, you have a bunch of other classes added in between. These NS classes that starts with NS, which is next step. Means next step is the company's for. These classes are coming from the iOS SDK basically. So all objects in RubyMotion are coming from essentially Objective-C or foundation framework. And I guess that's a better proof of what I'm trying to say. Every object is just an NS object from the iOS SDK. And the corollary of that observation is that all Objective-C methods are RubyMotion. So what does that mean? It means, for example, if I'm trying to debug my app in RubyMotion and I saw a related topic in Stack Overflow, if you probably you're gonna read Objective-C, and all of the classes there and the methods are essentially translatable into RubyMotion. And so some examples in Objective-C. If you want to create a string, you first declare a string pointer, and then you allocate, and then initialize with some initial value. In RubyMotion, you can essentially do the same thing. You're just sending alloc, and then init with string, and then stop. So that's it. Another example is in RubyMotion, in Objective-C, if you're sending an uppercase string to string, which capitalizes everything, you can do the same thing in RubyMotion. And another thing is that you can still use your Ruby methods. So uppercase string and uppercase are just the same, essentially the same thing. except that app case is shorter. Another observation is that there's this concept of named parameters in RubyMotion. If you haven't heard of it, I wouldn't be surprised. It's because named parameters are not inherent in Ruby. It's something that was inherited from Objective-C. And to give you an example, you have here the same string. We're calling this method like draw at point. What's this? It's actually the method is actually draw at point with font. And just to emphasize, so you see when you translate this into RubyMotion, essentially the method is actually draw at point with font, and you have two parameters. And name parameters is just it means that your parameters are just labeled with the method name. Like font is the font parameter is labeled with font, and point is labeled with point. So that's from Objective-C.
Quick question. Can you do method overloading?
Yeah, I think so.
How do you overload in Ruby?
And this is a re-implementation of
Okay.
Ruby, so I'm not sure how it works, but yeah, if you define a method called draw at point and you do this thing, it won't be RubyMotion won't be confused.
Okay.
I'm not sure how it does it though. And so the question is, if they're the same, if traditional iOS app development is almost the same as when you're doing it in RubyMotion, then why are we going to use it? Why one would use it? So let's go to the good stuff. I think in this talk I won't have trouble convincing a lot of you that Ruby is really powerful. And as Matt said in an interview, the Ruby language is its goal is to provide programmers happiness. And I think as cheesy as it sounds, I think what he's trying to say is that it provides productivity and by having concise code and readable code and whatnot. And so I'll move to the other stuff, which is one, you don't have to use Xcode. In traditional iOS app development, you have to learn a bunch of stuff. Aside from learning Objective-C, you also have to learn how to use the Xcode properly, which would probably be uncomfortable for a Ruby developer who's used to edit his own editor in the command line. And RubyMotion has the same workflow. Another is that most of the tasks in RubyMotion are just done by rake task. If it's not rake, it's the motion command, which is the command for RubyMotion. If you want to run your RubyMotion app in a simulator, you just say rake simulator. If you want to run it on a device, you just say rake device. And if you want to run tests, you just run rake spec. So, speaking of specs or tests, another feature of RubyMotion that you probably won't find as beautiful as in traditional iOS app development is testing. In Ruby, the testing culture is pretty strong. And in RubyMotion, you have a testing tool out of the box. Like when you create a sample app, it has already one test in the spec folder. Okay, so it's using MacBacon basically. It looks like RSpec. It's because MacBacon is just an RSpec load, a smaller RSpec load. Another is garbage collection. I think in Objective-C there is a way to do this also. I think it's called something like art. Not sure, but anyway, this is also a feature in RubyMotion. And before, there was a time in Objective-C land where you have to deallocate and allocate stuff. In RubyMotion, you don't have to worry about that. And another cool thing about RubyMotion that's not in Xcode in any way is that there's a read eval print loop. And basically, it's like Chrome Inspector. Like when you're running your RubyMotion app, in an actual iOS simulator. This is not a fake iOS simulator. This is the actual iOS simulator. You can select certain elements, and you can set properties. Like, for example, this one, this label, I set the text as something else. So you can do that.
Sorry, if I may add, there's a REPL in Objective-C. It's called GDB.
But it's not.
You have to be in debugger mode.
Uh,
But you can access the runtime.
but yeah, can you select it like over the mouse?
No, but you could access the object hierarchy.
Um,
I'm just saying.
Oh yeah.
That's not entirely.
It's like basically this is like
Pillow fight!
anyway. Another thing is that that's good in RubyMotion is there are, in the course of I think 5 or 6 months since RubyMotion is introduced, there are a lot of gems that are really useful. Like for example, this code is coming from a gem called teacup, and teacup is basically a way to style your RubyMotion app in a CSS-like way. Like for example, you can set all your text fields to have a red color, something like that. Something, I'm not sure if you can do that in Xcode. So, another thing is that, aside from the RubyMotion gems, you still can use the Ruby gem for Objective-C, which is CocoaPods. So that's another option. You also, of course, these Objective-C libraries are written in Objective-C. So essentially, you would have to translate them into RubyMotion when you're reading their docs. Some disadvantages. One is there is a cost. It's $200 if you want to buy it now, and you have 1 year updates. It won't expire, but it won't update after a year. So you have to pay $99 per year to continue your updates. And most resources right now in iOS app development is just written in Objective-C. And so you have this, so RubyMotion is not an excuse to not learn Objective-C. It's like, their relationship is like CoffeeScript and JavaScript. Yeah, right? You can't just go into CoffeeScript right away. You still have to learn JavaScript. Same thing with iOS app development. And another thing is that there's no RubyMotion book yet.
RubyMotion.
I think there is one coming from pragmatic programmers, but it's still not there. So demo time. I'll just create. I have a pre-made app here already called Magic 8 Ball. So, what it does is just it's just the Magic 8 Ball. So when you tap on your device, it just does some random string update, label update. So sometimes it says no, sometimes it says try again, maybe yes. So what I would do? This is I just change color.
Colors.
How can I set the color?
Ano yung invert color? May key command para mag-invert color. Position.
Anyway, so it's not also readable.
Color scheme.
I was supposed to just run rig spec just to give an overview of. I have to go first to the directory. Magic 8. So I'm just going to run some specs. Okay. So this is the basic overview of what Magic 8 Ball has. First one, Magic 8 Ball. You have a Magic 8 Ball has 4 answers and it generates a random answer. If we check the Magic 8 Ball model, it's just basically I erased it. It's just pure plain old Ruby object. It's just it has answers, and basically answers are just coming from the default answers, which is somewhere here. So it has 4 answers: yes, no, maybe, try again. Also, there's a method called random answer. It's basically just samples from that array. So it's just creating a random. It just chooses randomly between the 4 elements from the array. So that's the model. Next is Magic 8 Ball View Controller. So if you want to show your Magic 8 Ball to the view, to the device, you have to have a view controller. So it has a background image, which is just the 8 ball, the number 8, the billiard ball number 8. It also has the label, which contains the response or the answer. And when you tap on the device, it changes its answer. So there's a single tap gesture recognizer, and it updates the label when the answer. Wait, this is wrong. Updates the label when you tap on the device. So let's just check the controller here. Controller is essentially this. This is your controller has a label, which is basically this label here. So this ball is just an image that's coming from this. So every view controller has its view. So you just set the image to be this background. So it's just a background.png, which is available here. Background.png. The label is just something that's coming from this method, and label is essentially just an instance of a UI label that has its background color, text, font, text color, text alignment, etc. So that's the label, and you add it to the subview. This business of adding subviews, it's like in HTML. You can embed elements inside. You can embed HTML elements inside other HTML elements. So if you're going to check, the app and check its tree, so this is the structure. Okay. I think it's broken. Let's try it. Yeah. Okay. So you have a UI window, which is basically like a body, the body equivalent in HTML, and you have in there the UI image view, which is the background, the number 8, and then inside that image view you have another element, which is a UI label. So you can draw similarities from HTML if you're familiar with web development. So next is the tab. When you tap, the tab is just an instance of some class called the UI tap gesture recognizer, and you have here you allocate it and then init the target. self and action. I'll just separate this. Just make it bigger. So when you allocate and then initialize with target, self, and action show answer. So what's this target action business here? In Objective C, this is something that's inherited from Objective C, and it's because Objective C doesn't have anonymous blocks. Like in JavaScript, when you can bind and trigger, you can bind elements to certain events, and you can pass an anonymous function, right? In Objective C, you can't do something like that. So you have to have a target and then just have an action here. So show answer. So whenever you tap, you just show your answer. Basically, that's it. And then you add that tap instance to the view. So that's how you do it. And last but not least, you have to connect the view controller to the model. So you create an instance of the magic lead ball. I think that's it. So with that, you have a magic lead ball app. Alright, so that's it. So, questions. Questions?
If you were to make your first iOS app and you know Ruby, would you suggest using RubyMotion or going straight to Objective-C?
Like, right now, I think it's important that you're not just doing it on your own. Like, you have to contact, like, for example, other people who use RubyMotion. RubyMotion is still in development.
Can we add it on Facebook?
What?
Can we add it on Facebook?
Anyway, I'll just answer first.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. There are already apps out there in the app store that are made out of RubyMotion. You can check out their blog. There are a number of apps out there, ranging from enterprise to games. So there are games written in RubyMotion. There are normal UI element stuff apps that are out there. So we just check out.
It's actually a wrong question. Do you have a Facebook fan page? Asimo.
Balik ako ng Facebook man.
Yes.
So questions.
Baka tayo malayo.
Questions?
Actually, kung clarify ko lang isang point about anonymous function. In Objective-C, there's a concept called blocks. That you could, in some objects, you could pass a init block. It's so defined. It behaves like an anonymous function.
Okay.
Are there
But that is
Say go ahead.
but that particular function called that init with target.
Because that's a target action.
That's a target action.
That's a defined interface. So people expect that to exist.
So that's an okay.
But yeah, that you're correct. You're passing some.
Yeah, it's a predefined method. So was there a time that's not that?
No, the block syntax came in later.
Okay, so that's probably the reason why. So, any questions?
I noticed it's doing this camel case ba yun? What's that case?
Camel case,
It's not camel case, it's another
snake case.
Pascal.
Pascal case. No, Pascal.
Ano yung
It's doing
Pascal?
that Pascal. You know that small letter for
Smaller.
and
Notation.
it's for me, no, as a Ruby developer, that's ugly.
Dapat snake case. Snake
All
case
of your
tayo.
works goes with snake case.
There's the similar drama in CoffeeScript. There was a there was this drama about CoffeeScript like months ago. It's also existed in our scenario code base right now. Like some of our CoffeeScript are written in snake case and some are written in what's that, Pascal case. And there was this drama in CoffeeScript where they changed the example from snake case to Pascal case, and they were arguing what what should we use? Snake case or Pascal case? And it was a long issue in JavaScript in GitHub. So you could read that issue in GitHub.
Okay. I guess my opinion with CoffeeScript is I think you should use snake case as well. Because considering they're following the whole Ruby shit.
No, they're following JavaScript shit.
This one, it's what you call that?
Run out of beer.
It's using like it's no longer using parentheses. Am I right? Sorry,
What I meant to say is, what CoffeeScript tries to do is just like a layer on top of JavaScript. So, if there's any sort of convention in JavaScript, like say for example, in casing, it's sort of inherited into CoffeeScript. So at least that's usual consensus.
Does it like convert it to that's it?
Hindi, parang as transparent as possible.
Okay. There are still 2 talks, right? So I'll just finish this. Obligatory resources. Thanks.
Balik mo! Hindi mabasa ng mga tao.
So, here's my Twitter.
Mas importante yan kaysa resources.
Bakit body? May question pa. Ba't body daw?
Yun.
May question.
Okay na.
Are you using that like, what's a job you want? Let's say Logica.
It's more of an exploratory work as of the moment. We don't have, I think we don't have plans yet for native apps. Okay.
I thought, legit question, magkano?
Na.
I mean, if I, I want to get into development, how much do I need to pay for, like, say, RubyMotion? Because it's not free, right?
It's
Like,
199.
if you're a developer,
199. After a year that
I
you...
think 199 for 1 year with updates. You can still use it after 1 year, but the updates and support stop after 1 year. So the 99 per year is just for
This is still on top of how much you have to pay for the Apple.
Apple then 99 then.
Double tax.
So yeah, RubyMotion tax.
Cost for not learning Objective-C.
Can you show us yung nagawa mo na?
yung Magic 8 Ball.
Apart from that, did you have anything?
Wala siya dito yung ayan. I was
No, sorry.
Why not like a top secret client project?